National Theatre, as a home of performing arts in Nigeria, is one of the national assets the federal government may be putting on sale to generate sufficient revenue to finance the country's annual budgets for the next 3 years. That's between 2018 to 2020.
Yes, indeed. Now, the edifice was completed in 1976 in preparation for the 1977 Festival of Arts and Culture, Festac. Government says proceeds from the privatization of the assets would be used to finance the budget deficit of 2.1 trillion naira. All right, with us in the studio is the interim president of the National Association of Nigerian Theatre Arts Practitioners, NANTAP, Israel Ebo. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Nice so why are we losing our heads? Because government wants to sell this national assets. I mean, government is saying, look, the nation is broke and we need all the monies we can get to fund the budget deficits. What's wrong with that?
Well, there's nothing wrong with government saying, I'm broke, I want to sell some of the properties I have. But at some point in life, most of us have had to let go certain things to take care of other things. But in letting go of those things, you look at how relevant whatever you want to let go is to you as a person and to your development. Now, we'll talk of the National Theatre. The National Theatre is one of the monuments that we can refer to as having relevance to our history as a people. And not just to us as Nigeria, but to the whole of the black race as a symbol of Festac. Above that is, in Nigeria, when you talk of the entertainment industry, the National Theatre is the only investment anyone can point at as having been put in place by government. Every other thing that has happened within the entertainment sector that has led to it being recognized today globally has been put in place by practitioners. So when government in the first instance says, the only investment I have in a sector that I have said is becoming the alternative source of revenue generation as the revenue from oil continues to dwindle, that I want to sell it, when this same government has continued to say, we want to woo investors to invest in the sector by putting in place infrastructures that will help its development, and the only infrastructure that government has put in place, government says, I want to sell it, then government first is sending out a wrong signal that I do not believe in that sector because I'm not ready to invest in it. And when you do not believe in a sector, you cannot encourage international investment into that sector to help it grow. So it is not just about the sentiment of, because most times people will say, oh, Nigerians are just sentimental, we are attached to it sentimentally.
Yeah,
for
because
you cannot take that out.
Theatre practitioners are saying that, look, this is the only legacy, you know, and you're depriving us of that, you know, cultural legacy that we have.
It's not just a legacy. The legacy is not just for practitioners. It's for us as a nation. Because the truth is, when government sells it, there is no guarantee that whoever is buying it will invest in it and continue to use it for the development of that sector. The major interests that will appeal to most people who want to buy it is the expanse of land. So government has said they want to sell it because it is not viable. Do you then think that some businessman will invest billions to retain it in a sector that government has said is not viable? So there are a lot of questions that we must ask ourselves. And these are the things.
Yeah, Israel, let's go into the real things that go around in National Theatre. As it is right now, what happens there? What goes on in the theatre?
If you look at the National Theatre as it is not a structure of pride for us as Nigerians or for the sector. The truth is, ask yourself, how many shows happen there? Shows hardly happen there. So it is just an edifice. From that point, we'll say, yes, government should sell it. But some of us have advocated that it is what it is and how it is because government has failed to do what it should do. Ask yourself, why is it that the most sound centers of this world, they are viable, they attract shows, and the National Theatre does not?
Isn't it because, look, it's simple as ABC. Government has no business in government or investing in such things like the National Theatre or the TBS, which we hear is part of the national assets
government has no business.
Isn't that the reason why it is the way it is right now? That it's almost
it is the way it
an
is
embarrassment
right now because it is a failure of government. I'll give an example. All the leaders, the leadership of the National Theatre, they've been appointed by government. The present headship of the National Theatre was appointed by government. 7 months down the line, he has now spent cumulatively 20 days in the National Theatre. You head an institution and you have relocated to Abuja. The sector practitioners have called on government consistently to address it. But government has refused. And so some of us are beginning to think that maybe it's all a ploy by government. You know, it's just a case of you want to hang a dog, you give it a bad name. So government deliberately continue to put in place people who are not committed to the sector to give a justification for it not being viable.
Okay.
What we then say is, can government exploit PPP? Lagos State has shown it works. If Lagos State presently is investing in building 6 theatres, it is the recognition of the vibrancy of that sector and what it has to contribute to the economy. So if Lagos can recognize that, why is the federal government not recognizing that?
But would it be different if you mentioned Lagos State? If Lagos offers to buy the National Theatre,
or take it over just like the National
yeah,
Stadium?
National Stadium, would it be okay?
If Lagos State,
because Lagos has pedigree, exactly.
Lagos has shown, but we also appointed by government. 7 months down the line, he has now spent cumulatively 20 days in the National Theatre. You head an institution and you have relocated to Abuja. The sector practitioners have called on government consistently to address it. But government has refused. And so some of us are beginning to think that maybe it's all a ploy by government. You know, it's just a case of you want to hang a dog, you give it a bad name. So government deliberately continue to put in place people who are not committed to the sector to give a justification for it not being viable.
Okay.
What we then say is, can government exploit PPP? Lagos State has shown it works. If Lagos State presently is investing in building 6 theatres, it is the recognition of the vibrancy of that sector and what it has to contribute to the economy. So if Lagos can recognize that, why is the federal government not recognizing that?
But would it be different if you mentioned Lagos State? If Lagos offers to buy the National Theatre,
or take it over just like the National
yeah,
Stadium?
National Stadium, would it be okay?
If Lagos State,
because Lagos has pedigree, exactly.
Lagos has shown, but we also know that, see, most times when there is reaction from any interest group or sector, it is because track record of government in selling off government-owned institutions have shown that it is basically first and foremost for business. Consideration is never given to the key players in that sector to even say, okay, we're giving you the first option if you want to buy it so that you can retain it since you believe it is viable.
And you hold it in high esteem.
The stakeholders, the key stakeholders, even approached government to say, look, we can actually take over this national asset. This is what and what we can achieve with it. This is
including
what we can
NANTAP
do.
that you belong to.
Right now, NANTAP is already working on that. Because while we continue to say governments do not sell, We also recognize that government has said we need to sell this to have money. So we are preparing. We are consulting. We are engaging, already working towards engaging professionals in the area of buying assets, managing assets. We are reaching out to our members because do not forget that we already have practitioners who are building, who are investing in theaters. And we are saying, okay, this is something that we all need to invest in. If government says it wants to sell it, then we'll need to buy it and make sure it remains an institution for the promotion of arts and culture, run by professionals, and will show government that it is a viable sector. It has great potentials to employ. The National Theatre, even as run by government, engages more than 300 workers, civil servants. That's outside those who service productions or events when they do happen.
Yeah, but someone would say about that 300 that you mentioned there, or 3,000 or 300? Yeah, 300. The 300 that you mentioned there, some would argue that, well, they're just there receiving salaries and not doing anything.
Yes, it's because government has made them redundant. When you have technicians, experts who are meant to service events, shows, and no show happens, is it their fault that no show is happening? When you have a national theater that shuts down by 4 p.m., all over the world,
when life is supposed to start.
Yes, when we travel out of the country, you visit the national theaters, and you visit in the evenings because you want to see activities. But in Nigeria, it shuts down. That's even assuming it even works, because most times you go there, even right now, if you go there, most probably there will be no power. So no one is even working in the offices.
And I wonder how Alex Ekweme, the late vice president, former vice president, that is, who passed on only recently, we're told that he actually is a brain behind the designing of the National Theatre, how he would be feeling right now to know that this national piece of art, it's not just a structure, it's actually a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. It's a major landmark, not only for Lagos, but of course for Nigeria. So if government decides, you know, maybe hopefully they're listening to this and decides, okay, look, these people are really passionate about what this means to them. What then for the National Theatre?
If we will, like I said, we will advocate a PPP arrangement.
You know why I asked that? Look, the National Theatre is a structure, right, that represents an ideal, right? But it is sitting on massive land.
Expanse of land.
Expanse of land.
The National Theatre.
That seems to just be wasting.
Yes, the National Theatre as is just the first phase. The master plan of the National Theatre has different phases.
Okay.
It's meant to be a complex. Housing hotels, shopping malls, arts villages, craft villages.
Oh, that is
it's
what
the design.
That should,
okay.
That's the original plan.
That's the original plan.
So it wasn't completed in the first place.
For the first act, phase 1 was completed, which basically is meant to host first act. Now, we're meant to go into creating the other phases.
Now, First Act Town was also part of...
Yes. Now, if you recall, the immediate past government, just before they left office, they started the process of engineering the completion of the second phase and possibly moving to the third phase. And they had road shows globally. And they were able to attract prospective investors who were willing to invest to get the National Theatre to where it ought to be based on the plan.
So what happened?
That's the question. Why is there no continuity in government?
Okay.
Right now, that led to documents being presented to government that showed that the government can generate between 3 to 5 billion yearly by just concessioning the National Theatre and not selling it. Now, the question is, if you can generate that on a yearly basis, why sell it, which is a one-off? And you no longer own the property. Why not concession it? You still own the property, you continue to earn on it, and foreign investors help you develop it to raise the value.
All right, let us, you have said government, it seems government is not really interested in all of this. They may not even know how to go about it, as the case may be. Let's keep government aside. NANTIP, your organization is there. NANTAP, rather, is there. You have other agencies that are also, apart from NANTAP, there are other agencies that collaborate with you.
Yes.
What happens to your wooing investors? Those who have, there are Nigerians, there are companies in Nigeria, there are companies in Africa, and all of that who have the wherewithal.
Yes.
Calling 2, 3, 4, 5 companies or individuals together, wooing them into saying, okay, fine, government is talking about selling this. Can you buy it so we can, you know, continue this, so that there's an arrangement in that regard?
Maybe
and then,
get a few Dangotes?
Yeah, something like that.
Who incidentally has been advising for the sale of national assets, if my memory
exactly.
serves me.
NNPC,
Yes.
refineries and all of that.
NANTAP, I mentioned this earlier, NANTAP is already working on that. Only yesterday, we were in a meeting, coalition of 12 leaders, leaders of 12 associations and guilds within the sector.
Okay.
And this was one of the issues we discussed. Coming out together, because when we work as a body within the sector, we can appeal more to investors. And that, we have already started the process. Even within NANTAP, well before this came up, what we were working on, and that is the process that we had already started before now, was working with the Lagos State government to manage some of those theaters that Lagos State government is building, to make them functional and to make sure that they serve the purpose for which they are being built, which is meant to promote the entertainment industry. And when this came up, we also sat and said, okay, there's even a bigger fish, which will be of greater importance to the sector and to practitioners. So we have started the process of moving all the plans that were in place in working with Lagos State to working and buying the National Theatre, or getting the investors with the agreement that they will retain it as an institution to promote the entertainment industry.
All right, we look forward to greater days. Not just even the private sector players. If you can appeal to state governments within the Southwest, they are also, they can also be stakeholders. So you woo all these people. Israel Abel, interim president of NANTAP, as a Nigeria Association of National Association of Theatre Arts Practitioners. Thank you very much for coming on the program.